Terry Haynes of Pangea Policy, a voice that's often heard here on Bloomberg TV and radio, writes in a note, there's one big reason Hormuz almost certainly isn't going to reopen just because Iran and Oman make a deal. Iran and Oman aren't exclusively able to make any deal that sticks. Hormuz is international waters governed by a UN treaty that doesn't change because a couple of countries decide otherwise. Is he right?
Well, Kayleigh, that may be legally speaking true, but we're not really dealing with legalities at this point. We're dealing with hard power politics. And the fact is, the deal that the Omanis are closing in on with Iran is being conveyed. The details of those are being conveyed throughout the GCC to gain the collective support of those countries, as well as back to Washington. So I am hearing that indeed they are very close, that it will be a 60-day deal with one option for renewal, and that the terms of the deal are really to just arrive at more durable arrangements for the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, this is not about the nuclear deal or the nuclear program at all. No fees, but as you're seeing in the press, some division of responsibilities that are not entirely, shall we say, 50-50.
What about the Red Sea then? I'm getting confused. So we get 3 lanes of travel and some sort of toll booth eventually in the Strait of Hormuz. Houthis are still threatening shipping in the Red Sea, and we've seen it impact oil prices already. The group most recently, just in the last 24 hours, promising to escalate attacks on Saudi vessels in the northern Red Sea. Is this going to be a game of whack-a-mole, trying to keep waterways
Joe, you're
open?
right. You're right that there is an added volatility to the larger situation for the world economy, where the Red Sea and the Houthi in particular are concerned. So there has been no deal struck, or to my knowledge, even being really dealt with at this point. There's a lot of threat making on the part of the Houthi, and they do, of course, have some capabilities that are extraordinary to disrupt not just maritime traffic, but indeed to target Saudi energy infrastructure.
Well, and of course, it is the concern over the idea that infrastructure could be targeted in retaliation for U.S. escalation against Iran that we understand is what the Gulf allies expressed to President Trump and got him to pull back and give Iran this one last chance, as he described it. Ambassador, do you believe, A, that this really is the last chance, that Iran believes that, or do you believe ultimately that there will have to be further escalation if this is ultimately to resolve at any point?
No, I never believe that, the verbiage of one last chance or one last round of diplomacy or one last round of military operations. There's no deal until there is a deal. And this emerging deal on the Strait of Hormuz will simply reset the table for a more detailed set of discussions and arrangements. And I would hope to see at that point that American negotiators would actually be at that table. But no, there's no last and final.
One of the scarier headlines that we talked about yesterday came from Reuters. The U.S. Army has used up virtually all of its long-range missiles. We're out of ATACMS. If I know that, certainly Iran knows that. Does this goad the regime to try to wait us out even longer?
So, Joe, I think there's so many factors that weigh or that come into play on the regime's high levels of confidence, probably overconfidence, but still they assess the president's impatience. They assess the president's threat-making being pretty hollow at this point. Yes, they do read, of course, all of the open information about the straitened circumstances of our missile defense arsenal, our munitions of various type, high-end munitions. And they certainly look at the president's political clock, which is to say the onrushing elections in November.
And the president consistently maintains that he doesn't care about that clock. He doesn't care about the midterms, as he said perhaps now famously. Ambassador, But as we consider the looming midterms in November, and what you just said is there is no real last chance or last escalation, that nothing is final until there is a final deal. Do you expect we could be at that point by November?
I think it's going to be exceptionally difficult, but possible to arrive at some more durable arrangements for the strait that won't be entirely to our liking by any means. That will be a stepping stone to a more durable negotiated end to the war itself. But I don't think that will be complete, because assuming that the president still wants a negotiated set of terms on the nuclear program, that will certainly not be done by November. And I'd be surprised, frankly, if that discussion is even begun.
Well, there's a lot to be said there. And when you sort of look at this since it began, we're walking up, I guess, on 6 months at this point, which is pretty remarkable to think. And you sort of stretch this out into a series of events. How would you describe the inflection points? We've had a series of on-again, off-again bouts of fighting, on-again, off-again negotiations. But frankly, nothing has really changed since this began, other than destroying some of, if not most of, Iran's military assets and creating a new leverage point for Tehran. Am I missing anything here?
Well, Joe, I think the way I look at it is there were some really key inflection points in the first several weeks of the war, indeed in the first week. And every passing week, and certainly every passing month, has gotten worse in terms of U.S. deterrence, credibility, and the power and punch of the president's own language. So there's no time like the present to get on with the negotiations and do at the table what the administration has avoided doing to date, which is recognize that there are limits to what the military tools can bring you, and that at a certain point you have to get to the negotiating table and really do some hard driving. And it's not as if we don't have leverage, carrots and sticks, but we've been far too stick-minded rather than thinking about the inducements for a better set of terms with the Iranians, notwithstanding the fact that you've got a much more radicalized regime. And that, again, was an inflection point from the first week of the war.
Well, as we consider diplomacy then here, Ambassador, how materially different would the negotiations potentially be if it were a different set of negotiators at the table on behalf of the United States? Is Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner still the best team for this job, as they kind of were negotiating from the onset, or would a switch up potentially benefit the situation?
So I'm a firm believer that you can put a variety of different principles at the table, but they must be backed by a cohort of real deep expertise, legal, technical, in terms of both maritime security, the regional dimension, and so forth. I think the team has struggled with a set of misconceptions about the difference between doing real estate deals, no matter how complex, how torturous, difference between that kind of deal and a negotiation to arrive at a political set of arrangements. It's apples and oranges, or as the Brits would say, chalk and cheese. They are so fundamentally different. And I don't think they have appreciated that all the way up until now.
Is Iran waiting for the next administration?
No, the Iranians aren't waiting for 2+ years, but they do believe that they've got a better situation sitting where they are and waiting out certainly until November. They don't have an indefinite amount of string to play out here in terms of their own economic problems at home, but they definitely feel that the pressure is rising on the U.S. side faster than it is on their side of the table. Since they don't have to stand for elections, they don't really have to countenance what the public wants. They have massive tools of repression to use against the public.